Welcome, adventurers. Today, we're going to talk about what is, in my opinion, the best part of each class in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I am going to stick to, for the most part, core class features that you get at level 1. So not advanced feats that you get later on or specific subclass feats or anything like that, though I do have a few optional and second level things here and there. So you'll find a bit of that, but it won't be like, oh, at level 17, you get this amazing thing. That doesn't count. I'm really thinking about the things that most, if not all players of a certain class will be able to enjoy. So, hope that makes sense. Let's dive in, starting with the Alchemist. With the Alchemist, I'm going with Quick Alchemy. This is often called out as the thing that gives the Alchemist that versatility, which is often described as one of the best aspects of the class. At any given point, when you still have your infused reagents, you make an item from your formula book. It's kind of like having dozens of cantrips at your disposal. You can always make the right item for the situation without having to think so far in advance. It really does make the Alchemist a very versatile class that can adapt to any situation. For the Barbarian, I'm going to go with hit points, a combination of the 12 hit points per level that you get from the class, which is quite a lot considering that other classes only have 6, and then also the temporary hit points that you gain from raging. I mean, you think about it, at level 1, you can have a Barbarian with a tough ancestry who invests in their constitution for a +3 constitution. They will have 25 base hit points, that's 12 from the class, and then 3 from your con and 10 from your ancestry. And then you will have your level plus the constitution modifier or another 4 while raging. So you will have 29 hit points at level 1 while raging. It's incredible. For the Bard, there is so much to choose from, but I'm actually going to go with a second level optional feat called Multifarious Muse. You get to pick up multiple subclasses. No, it's not the only class that can do this, but I think they do it the best. There are 4 Bard subclasses, so you reasonably can pick up all of them, and if you can extend Courageous Anthem by hitting something and by using a focus spell, and then you also have access to the amazing Bardic lore, well, you have built a strong character. The champion is kind of an obvious one. I'm going to go with the champion's reactions. I like reactions a lot, but sometimes you can't really use them much because the triggers are pretty situational. That is not the case with the champion's reactions. It's being attacked. That's going to happen all of the time in combat, so you will reliably get to use those really good reactions and basically have 4 actions every single turn. The Cleric is another pretty obvious one. I'm going to go with the Divine Font, especially if you're doing healing. That is why people play as clerics, to be the party magical healer. And this especially got better in the remastered now that it is just a static number of heal spells and it is no longer tied to your charisma. It gives you a lot more flexibility in building out your cleric and not having to worry about multiple ability scores just to do that core thing that the cleric is really good at. The Druid I actually struggled with a lot because they are very, very well balanced to me. I mean, if you think about like a character builder tool, I feel like a Druid is just like on a scale of 1 to 5, every dial is turned to a 3. It's just medium everything. So that's why I actually chose their medium armor and shield block, because this does make them, at a core class level, the tankiest casters. Yes, other casters can achieve this through subclasses or additional training or something, but it is core to all Druids, and it is what makes me say that they are pretty much equal at everything. They're full spellcasters, of course. They don't have great weapon training, but that good armor and shield block ability does make them pretty decent in melee too. And without that, I wouldn't say that they're perfectly, maybe not perfectly even at everything, but very, very well balanced. Fighter, I mean, come on, it is the expert weapon proficiency. Being able to hit almost every single first attack at least without your multiple attack penalty, and then being able to crit without needing a 20 on the dice is what this class is all about. Now, the Gunslinger also is an expert, but only in firearms and crossbows. That's not what I'm going to go with, though. I'm going to go with the Slinger's Reload, because these are all 2-for-1 actions, and action economy is really important. You're going to be reloading a lot as a gunslinger, so you might as well do something else, like demoralize or faint while doing so. Now onto the Inventor. I'm going with something that I like the flavor of, and I like its usefulness, but I especially really like the mechanics and the way they're written. Unstable actions. I love that Paizo has given a martial character something that operates a little bit like a focus spell. But remember, when you use one of these unstable actions, you actually get to roll a DC 17 flat check, and you might be able to use it again. It's very cool. With the Investigator, I'm going with something else that is not a core class feature. It is tied to a subclass, and it is an optional feat. That's odd. You walk into a room and you notice something a little bit out of place. In a game where exploration sometimes gets overlooked, or you quite literally miss things in exploration, this is an amazing feat. It actually reminds me a lot of this, well, obscure video game that I used to play called Obscure. It was like a horror survival kind of a thing. And there was a character in that sort of had this feature where you would press a button and an object that you hadn't noticed in the room would kind of light up. And I mean, you could change your party around in that game, but we always used that character because it was such a helpful feat. With the newest class, the Kineticist, I'm going with their core attack feature, Elemental Blast. It is amazing and versatile. You got 4 different versions of it because it is 1 or 2 action, and it is ranged or melee, and all the combinations thereof. And you can do different types of damage depending on the elements that you specialize in. So it's kind of your choice. You can do lots of little chip damage from range with 1 attack range, or you could specialize in getting up close and focusing all of your energy into a melee 2 action attack. So versatile, so easy to understand, it is really perfect mechanics. Magus is obvious. It is Spell Strike. It is the defining feature of the class. It's also, if you think about it, 3 actions for 2 and 2 attacks for only 0 or none multiple attack penalty. So it's really good mechanically speaking, and it perfectly sums up the class. There are other things about the Magus that I really like, but this really is the defining feature. Now for the most obvious answer on this entire list, Monk Flurry of Blows. It's why you choose to play a monk. I mean, other things as well, because it's a really good class. But come on, 2 strikes for 1 action. Every single round, you will use it over and over and over. If you like rolling the dice and you like hitting stuff pretty decently hard, you want to be a monk because of Flurry of Blows. And now onto the Oracle, where I am going to go with their Revelation spells. These are their focus spells, and they are probably the best focus spells in the game. Considering that you can use focus spells realistically in every single encounter, you will get a lot of use out of these, and you will be a very formidable opponent. And now for the Psychic, I am going to go with their ability to amp their cantrips using focus points. I mean, it's kind of the core thing about the Psychic is that they use cantrips but make them better. They're better to begin with, and then you make them even more better using your focus points to amp them. I think it's really cool that we have a different use for focus points other than just casting focus spells. You're still casting a spell, but you're using that focus point to modify a spell rather than cast it. I think it's really cool, and it gives the Psychic a really unique style of gameplay that differs from all of the other casters in the system. Ranger also feels a little bit obvious, I think, with Hunter's Edge. These are their combat abilities that are enabled on your hunted prey. There are only 3, and they're all pretty decent. I especially like that in some recent videos, people have called out Outwit, which I actually really like. I kind of like that intelligent style of gameplay. I thought that maybe people disliked it, but it seems like a lot of people like that one. And then, of course, everyone loves the Flurry. I mean, Flurry Ranger is just so powerful. So yeah, Hunter's Edge. Now onto the Rogue, where I am going to go with skill training because it is kind of what they do. I mean, you're trained in stealth and then a subclass skill, and then your intelligence modifier +7, and you can even be an intelligence-based rogue, and you pick up skills at every single level. And yes, the Investigator does that too, but there's sort of an asterisk on the way they do it. So yeah, rogues are the go-to skill monkey in the game. Sorcerer, spontaneous spellcasting. No, they're not the only spontaneous casters in the system, but they cast the most spells out of all the spontaneous spellcasters, and they're sort of the go-to example of spontaneous spellcasting. And from what I have seen, I don't know if this is totally true, but just kind of based on the campaigns I've played and the actual plays I've seen, Sorcerer is the most common choice for a spellcasting class, and I think it's because they're spontaneous, and spontaneous is just a little bit easier and sometimes nicer to play, and the Sorcerer is the most powerful spontaneous spellcaster. Now onto the Summoner. I'm going to choose Act Together. This is the way you coordinate your actions between you, the Summoner, and your summoned creature, your Eidolon. And it is different than the way that Command an Animal works, and it is much more flexible. You can do things like use 3 actions for yourself to cast like a 3-action spell if you wanted to, or to move once and strike twice, and you still get to give 1 action to your Eidolon. But then it can go the other way around. You can have your Eidolon focus on some combat by maybe moving into a flanking position and striking twice, but then you, the Summoner, still get another action out of that. It means you will have 4 actions every turn rather than 3. It's very versatile, and it's really quite easy to understand after you maybe read it once or twice, as long as maybe you're not too stuck in the way that Command an Animal works. Without this, the Summoner would be a real drag to play, I feel like. So this really enables that do anything that you want with it kind of gameplay that you can get out of this class. Onto the Swashbuckler, where I am going to go with Panache 3 ways. Yes, you can tumble through. Yes, you can perform and succeed at an action according to your subclass. But then there's that third, that at a GM's discretion, after succeeding at a check to perform a particularly daring action, you gain Panache. And I love that you are encouraged to try things out, to explore the space, explore the encounter, and get mechanically rewarded for it. Thaumaturge implements empowerment. There are so many good things about the Thaumaturge, and exploit vulnerability, sure, is sort of the core action, but it is easy to overlook the really, really handy, like literally in your hand, implements empowerment. Just by holding that darn thing, you get an extra 2 bonus damage per weapon die of your weapon that's in the other hand. So you might fail, or I guess critically fail, at that exploit vulnerability check, but you are still dealing extra damage just by holding your implement. And now we can thank the remaster for what I'm going to choose for the Witch. That is their 4th familiar ability, which is apply 3 abilities that are from the typical list of abilities that are available to all familiars in the system. And that's already a bonus, and that's nice. But now each patron also grants a familiar an ability that is used when you cast or sustain a hex. And this is finally the thing that the Witch needed to make them a unique and distinct and really mechanically fantastic class in the system. I do think that so far, out of everything I've seen in the remaster, the Witches have been the biggest improvement, and it is due to this ability. And finally, the Wizard. I'm going to go with Drain Bonded Item. You get to recast a spell that you already cast in a day. I rely on it quite a lot in my Wizard gameplay. I'm always excited that I have it still, that I get to use it. It provides you just a tiny bit of spontaneous-like abilities in your very, very prepared wizardy ways. And it is also technically why the Wizard does cast the most spells out of any other class in the system. And that's all adventures. What do you think? Are there other really cool parts of each of these classes that I missed that you might call your favorite? And also, do you think there will be any other classes like the Witch that get a major new feature and huge improvement in Player Core 2? Let's talk about it in the comments. And until then, remember, these are just mostly level 1 core class features. And when you get into your later class feats and archetypes and ancestry feats and everything, there is no limit to what you can do in this absolutely incredible game system.